Galactic Empress Tazra's throne room was a sight to behold, an architectural marvel of translucent crystal spires and flowing rivers of liquid light. Captain Darius Kane, Earth's chosen envoy, stood at its center, surrounded by alien courtiers whose features ranged from almost human to utterly unrecognizable. He maintained his composure despite feeling like a lone flame in an ocean of stars. Tazra, with her piercing violet eyes and regal golden exoskeleton, spoke in a tone both melodic and commanding. "Captain Kane, your people have proven themselves resourceful and bold in the galaxy. It is my honor to forge this alliance. As a token of goodwill, I present to you a gift." A collective murmur rippled through the court as a large, intricately carved box was wheeled into the room. Its surface shimmered with alien inscriptions that pulsed in rhythm with the room's ambient energy. Darius stiffened, unsure of what lay within. The Empress gestured, her voice firm. "This is no ordinary offering. Within lies a treasure cherished by our kind. To refuse it would be unwise." Caught between diplomacy and discomfort, Darius nodded, bowing slightly. "I accept your gift with gratitude, Empress. May it signify the beginning of a prosperous partnership." The Empress's eyes gleamed with approval, and the court erupted in applause. The box was sealed and transported to Darius's ship, the Horizon's Edge, under strict escort. The journey back to the Horizon's Edge was uneventful, but the box's ominous presence gnawed at Darius's thoughts. It was placed in his private quarters, a minimalist room designed for function over comfort. Athena, the ship's AI, materialized as a holographic projection, her translucent form shimmering with soft blue light. "Captain," the box emits faint biosignatures. "It appears alive." Darius frowned, his unease growing. "Alive? As in dangerous?" "Unknown. Scans indicate no immediate threat, but I recommend caution." Approaching the box, Darius ran his hand along its surface. The inscription seemed to react, glowing brighter under his touch. Suddenly, the box emitted a melodic hum, and its lid unfolded with a mechanical hiss. Inside was a woman, or something resembling one. Her skin was a luminous shade of teal, adorned with delicate, glowing tattoos that formed intricate patterns across her body. She was curled in a fetal position, her eyes closed, and her breathing steady. As Darius took a step back, the figure stirred. Her large, liquid-like eyes opened, meeting his with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. She sat up gracefully, her movements fluid and almost hypnotic. "I am Lindsay," she said, her voice soft but resonant. "Consort of the Imperial Order. I am yours, Captain." Lindsay stepped out of the box with an ethereal elegance that seemed out of place in the utilitarian quarters of the Horizon's Edge. Darius, however, was more preoccupied with the implications of her words. "Consort," he repeated, his tone edged with disbelief. "Yes," she replied, tilting her head slightly, her bioluminescent tattoos pulsing faintly. "I am trained to serve you in all capacities, diplomatic, personal, and physical. It is my honor to ensure your comfort and satisfaction." Darius stiffened. "You're not a gift. You're a person." Her expression faltered for a moment, replaced by confusion. "A person, yes, but a consort nonetheless. It is my purpose." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "On Earth, we don't assign people as property or gifts. It's not right." Lindsay's large eyes widened. "You reject me." Her voice trembled slightly, and her tattoos dimmed. No, Darius said quickly. "I don't reject you. I reject the idea that you have no choice in this. Don't you have any say in what you want to do?" She looked down, her hands clasped tightly. "Captain, I was raised for this role. My training began before I could speak. To serve is my identity." Her words stirred a mix of pity and frustration in Darius. He gestured for her to sit at the small table in his quarters, taking the seat across from her. "Tell me about your life," he urged gently. Lindsay hesitated, then began. "I was selected from birth to join the Imperial Consort Order. It is considered a great honor in my culture. Our training is comprehensive. We are educated in diplomacy, art, and the pleasure arts. Each consort is bound to their recipient to ensure unity and harmony between our peoples. That sounds more like indoctrination, Darius muttered. Lindsay's expression darkened. You insult my people's traditions? No, he said carefully. But on Earth, we value personal agency, the right to choose our own paths. That's why this feels wrong to me. Her tattoos brightened slightly, flickering in patterns he couldn't decipher. Your values are strange to me, Captain, but perhaps I can learn. The days that followed were marked by tentative conversations as Lindsay adjusted to her new environment. She shadowed Darius through the ship, observing how humans worked and interacted. One evening, as they sat in the observation lounge, Lindsay gazed out at the star-studded expanse. Your people are peculiar, she said. Darius chuckled. You've mentioned that before. What's peculiar this time? You do not seek to dominate or conquer, yet you explore. You form alliances not for power, but for survival. It's admirable. He shrugged. We're just trying to find our place in the galaxy. Lindsay turned to him, her expression thoughtful. And you, Captain? Do you have a place? Darius hesitated. I don't know. I spent most of my life as a soldier, fighting wars I didn't always believe in. Now I'm here, trying to ensure Earth's survival. Maybe that's my place for now. Her glowing tattoos shifted, pulsing in slow, deliberate waves. In my culture, these marks tell my story. Each one represents a moment, a memory. May I show you? Darius nodded, intrigued. She rolled up her sleeve to reveal a swirling pattern on her forearm. This one was my first memory of training. I was chosen to represent my kind. I felt proud yet afraid. Tentatively, Darius reached out, his fingers brushing the mark. A faint hum resonated from her skin, and for a brief moment, he felt a surge of emotions, not his own, but hers. Pride, fear, hope. He pulled back, stunned. That's incredible. Lindsay smiled softly. It is how we carry our past with us. As their conversations deepened, Darius began to see Lindsay as more than a consort or a diplomat. She was a person with her own complexities, shaped by a culture vastly different from his own. The horizon's edge cruised through the vast expanse of space, its corridors quiet but charged with the anticipation of an impending diplomatic summit. Darius was in the briefing room, poring over notes for his next meeting with the Galactic Empress's advisors. Lindsay stood nearby, observing him with a mix of curiosity and admiration. You prepare as if you are going to war, she remarked softly. In a way, I am, Darius replied without looking up. Diplomacy is just another kind of battlefield. Suddenly, Athena's voice cut through the room, her usual calm replaced by urgency. Captain Kane, unauthorized breach detected in Sector 5. Multiple intruders are aboard the ship. Darius shot to his feet, his military instincts kicking in. Lock down all essential systems. Notify security to intercept. Before he could leave the room, the door hissed open, and two armed intruders burst in. They were humanoid but wore dark, segmented armor that shimmered with an oily sheen. Their weapons, sleek and alien, hummed with deadly energy. Target acquired. One of them growled, leveling his weapon at Darius. Darius grabbed Lindsay's arm and yanked her behind cover as the intruders opened fire. Energy bolts slammed into the walls, leaving scorched marks and filling the air with acrid smoke. Stay down, he ordered, drawing his sidearm, a compact but powerful human-designed pistol. From their cover, Lindsay's voice was calm but insistent. Captain, let me help. Help how? He barked, firing off a few rounds to suppress the attackers. Lindsay didn't respond with words. Instead, she moved with breathtaking speed and agility, vaulting over their cover and landing near one of the intruders. Her bioluminescent tattoos flared brightly as she disarmed him with a series of precise, fluid motions. Darius gaped, momentarily distracted. What the? The second intruder aimed at her, but Darius recovered quickly, firing a shot that struck the attacker in the chest. The energy armor absorbed most of the impact, but it staggered him long enough for Lindsay to deliver a disabling blow. Within moments, the room was silent except for their heavy breathing. As Darius secured the unconscious intruders, Athena appeared as a hologram. "Captain, the ship has been infiltrated by a rogue faction opposed to the Earth Empire Alliance. Their numbers are limited, but they're targeting you specifically." "Terrific," Darius muttered. He turned to Lindsay, who was examining one of the fallen weapons. "Care to explain where you learned to fight like that?" Her expression was unreadable. "Consorts are trained in more than diplomacy, Captain. We must be prepared to protect our recipients at all costs." Darius frowned, the weight of her words sinking in. "At all costs? You mean even your own life?" Lindsay met his gaze steadily. "Yes, it is our duty." He shook his head. "That's not how I operate. Your life isn't expendable, Lindsay." Her glowing tattoos dimmed slightly, her voice soft. "You are. Unusual, Captain Kane." Athena interrupted, her tone sharp. "Captain, security reports the rest of the intruders have been neutralized. However, this incident suggests the alliance is more precarious than we thought." Darius nodded grimly. "Tell security to double patrols and secure the ship." As Athena disappeared, Darius turned back to Lindsay. "Come on, we need to regroup." The adrenaline of the fight had faded, leaving the ship in an eerie calm. Darius returned to his quarters with Lindsay, his mind racing with questions. She followed silently, her expression unreadable, but her glowing tattoos pulsed faintly, betraying the lingering tension she felt. Inside, Darius sank onto a chair, running a hand through his hair. "This mission just keeps getting better," he muttered sarcastically. Lindsay approached him hesitantly. "You're hurt," she said, gesturing to a gash on his forearm. He glanced at it dismissively. "It's nothing, just a scratch." "It needs attention," she insisted, her voice gentle but firm. Before he could protest, she retrieved a medkit from the wall panel. Kneeling beside him, she began cleaning the wound with precise, practiced movements. Her touch was surprisingly tender, her bioluminescent tattoos glowing softly as she worked. "You didn't have to fight back there," he said after a moment. "You could have gotten yourself killed." "It is my duty," she replied without looking up. "That's not what I mean." He leaned forward, catching her gaze. "You're more than just someone's gift. You're a person, Lindsay. You shouldn't have to risk your life for me." Her hand stilled, and she looked at him with a mixture of confusion and something deeper. Hope, perhaps. "You speak as if I have a choice. But this is who I am, Captain. I exist to serve and protect." "And if you didn't have to," he pressed, "if you could choose, what would you want?" Her glowing tattoos flickered uncertainly. "I do not know. No one has ever asked me that." The conversation shifted, becoming less about duty and more about identity. Lindsay shared pieces of her life, her early training, the isolation she endured, and the pride she felt when chosen as a consort. Darius listened intently, sharing his own struggles in return. He spoke of his time as a soldier, the wars he fought, and the people he lost. He admitted how those experiences made him hesitant to connect with others, afraid of losing them. "You carry much pain," Lindsay observed softly. "Yet you still fight for your people. That is admirable." He smiled faintly. "I guess we're both carrying a lot." She reached out hesitantly, her fingers brushing the edge of his sleeve. "In my culture, we use touch to share burdens. May I?" Darius nodded, unsure of what to expect. When her fingers met his skin, a faint hum resonated through the air. Her tattoos brightened, and he felt an unexpected warmth spread through him. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, a sense of calm and understanding that he hadn't felt in years. He looked at her in amazement. "What was that?" "A bonding touch," she explained. "It allows us to connect with another's emotions. It is sacred." The intimacy of the moment deepened, the walls between them breaking down. Lindsay leaned closer, her eyes searching his. "You are unlike anyone I have ever known, Captain. You see me not as what I was made to be, but as who I am." "And who you are," he said softly. is remarkable. Their faces were inches apart now, the air between them charged with unspoken tension. Slowly, tentatively, they closed the distance, their lips meeting in a kiss that was both gentle and passionate. The night unfolded in a blend of tenderness and intensity. It wasn't just about physical connection. It was an unspoken promise of trust, respect, and the beginnings of something deeper. Morning aboard the Horizon's Edge was marked by a gentle hum of the ship's systems and the faint glow of starlight through the observation window. Darius woke to find Lindsay seated near the viewport, her bioluminescent tattoos softly pulsing as she gazed out into the endless expanse of space. For a moment, he watched her in silence, the events of the previous night replaying in his mind. It had been more than just a moment of passion. It was a breaking of barriers, a merging of two worlds. "You're awake," she said without turning, her voice carrying a serene warmth. "Couldn't sleep much," he admitted, sitting up. "Too much to think about." Lindsay turned to face him, her expression calm but thoughtful. "Do you regret what happened?" He shook his head. "No. Do you?" "Not at all," she said with a faint smile. "For the first time I felt free." Later that day, Darius attended a secure holo conference with the Galactic Empress Tazra and her council. The Empress's violet eyes scrutinized him as he reported the assassination attempt and the successful defense of the ship. "You have proven yourself capable in both diplomacy and combat, Captain Kane," Tazra said. "The Alliance will proceed, but this incident reveals dangerous factions within our empire. We must act swiftly." Darius nodded. "Earth stands ready to support you, Empress. But I have a request." The courtiers murmured at his boldness, but Tazra raised a hand to silence them. "Speak, Captain." "I request that Lindsay's service to me be voluntary," he said firmly. "She's a person, not a tool or a symbol. If this alliance is to mean anything, it must start with respect for individual freedom." The Empress's gaze shifted to Lindsay, who stood by Darius's side. "What do you say, consort?" Lindsay hesitated, her glowing tattoos dimming as she considered the weight of the moment. Then, with quiet determination, she said, "I wish to stay with him, not as a consort, but as an equal." The court erupted in whispers, but the Empress's expression remained unreadable. Finally, she nodded. "So be it. The alliance is strengthened by your bond. May it bring unity to our peoples." As the conference ended, Lindsay turned to Darius, her expression a mixture of relief and uncertainty. "What happens now?" "We figure it out," he said with a small smile. "Together." Their bond had become a symbol of what the alliance could achieve, a blending of cultures, a respect for differences, and a shared hope for the future. As the Horizon's Edge resumed its journey, Darius and Lindsay stood side by side in the observation lounge, watching the stars streak past. For the first time, Lindsay said softly, "The stars don't feel so far away." Darius glanced at her, his own sense of hope reflected in her glowing tattoos. "They're closer than they've ever been." Weeks after the assassination attempt, the Horizon's Edge docked at the neutral station known as Solace Prime, a sprawling hub of trade and diplomacy. Its corridors were a melting pot of alien species, each bustling with their own agendas. Darius and Lindsay stepped off the ship together, their presence drawing curious stares. The station was hosting an emergency summit of the Galactic Alliance, a coalition of species striving to counter the rising threat of rogue factions. Darius's mission was to present Earth's strategic value, but Lindsay's role as his equal and symbol of unity was equally important. As they entered the Grand Chamber, murmurs rippled through the assembly. Representatives from dozens of species sat in their designated seats, their appearances ranging from gelatinous forms to towering beings encased in armor. At the head of the room sat Empress Tazra, her presence commanding attention. The summit began with a heated debate about how to handle the rogue factions. Some species advocated for a military crackdown, while others warned against escalating the conflict. When Darius rose to speak, the room quieted. "Earth may be new to the galactic stage, but we understand the cost of war. We've fought battles we didn't want to fight, and lost lives we couldn't afford to lose. The rogue factions thrive on division. If we're to defeat them, we must stand united. The assembly erupted into discussion, some delegates nodding in agreement while others voiced skepticism. One alien, a hulking figure with crimson scales, sneered, "What can Earth offer but words? You are a fledgling species with no real power." Before Darius could respond, Lindsay stood, her glowing tattoos casting soft light across the room. "You underestimate humanity at your peril. I have seen their courage, their ingenuity, and their capacity for compassion. They are more than worthy allies." Her words carried weight, silencing the doubters for a moment. After the session, Darius and Lindsay returned to their quarters, the tension of the day still hanging in the air. "Not bad," Darius said, leaning against the wall. "You might have just saved the Alliance with that speech." Lindsay smiled faintly. "Words are powerful, but they can only do so much." Before they could continue, Athena's hologram materialized, her tone sharp. "Captain, I've detected unusual activity near the station's energy core. A small group of individuals matching the profiles of rogue faction operatives has been identified." Darius straightened. "Do we have security teams in place?" "Minimal presence," Athena replied. "The station relies on its neutral status to deter conflict." Darius exchanged a glance with Lindsay. "We need to check it out." The corridors leading to Solus Prime's energy core were dimly lit and eerily quiet. Darius and Lindsay moved cautiously, their senses heightened by the weight of the situation. The station's energy core was not only its power source, but also vital to its life support systems. Any sabotage could spell disaster. Athena's voice guided them through their comms. "The operatives are near the primary access panel to the core. I'm monitoring their movements, but their precise objective remains unclear." "Understood," Darius whispered, his pistol at the ready. Lindsay walked beside him, her movements fluid and silent. Her glowing tattoos were dimmed, but the faint hum they emitted was a constant reminder of her presence. As they approached the energy core's chamber, muffled voices reached their ears. Darius signaled for Lindsay to stop, peeking around the corner to assess the situation. 3 operatives stood near the core, one of them working on a control panel, while the others kept watch. "They're tampering with the core stabilizers," Darius muttered. "If they disable those, the entire station could go critical." Lindsay's gaze was steady. "We must stop them now." Darius nodded. "You take the one on the right. I'll handle the other 2. Before the intruders could react, Lindsay sprang into action with the speed and precision that had awed Darius before. She disarmed the first operative in seconds, her glowing tattoos flaring brightly as she incapacitated him with a swift, calculated strike. Darius engaged the other 2, firing precise shots that forced them into cover. One of them returned fire, but Darius ducked behind a support beam, his military training taking over. "You're surrounded," he called out. "Drop your weapons and step away from the core." One of the operatives sneered. "You think you can stop us? This alliance is doomed, and your precious Earth will burn with it." Darius exchanged a glance with Lindsay. "Not today," he muttered. Lindsay moved with a blur of motion, taking advantage of the distraction to disable the second operative. Darius charged the last one, disarming him in a brief but intense struggle. As Darius restrained the last operative, the energy core emitted a warning hum. The rogue at the control panel had managed to activate a failsafe, a countdown to overload. "The core is destabilizing," Athena reported urgently. "You have less than 3 minutes to shut it down." Darius turned to the panel, his heart pounding. "Can you guide me through this?" "I can assist," Athena said, "but the system is alien. It will require manual overrides." Lindsay stepped forward. "I know this technology. I can help." "Are you sure?" Darius asked. She nodded, her glowing tattoos brightening with determination. "Trust me." Together, they worked frantically to stabilize the core, Lindsay translating the alien commands while Darius executed the overrides. The room was tense, the hum of the core growing louder with each passing second. Finally, Lindsay pressed a final sequence of symbols, and the core's hum subsided. The countdown halted, and the room filled with a calming light. "It's done," she said, exhaling deeply. As station security arrived to secure the scene, Darius and Lindsay stood together, their partnership now solidified by the crisis they had overcome. "You saved a lot of lives today," Darius said, his voice filled with gratitude. Lindsay smiled faintly. "We saved them together." Their victory, though hard won, came with a stark reminder of the challenges they still faced. The rogue factions were determined to disrupt the alliance, and the road ahead would only grow more treacherous. Back in their quarters aboard the Horizon's Edge, the aftermath of their ordeal at Solace Prime lingered in the air. The adrenaline had faded, leaving only a shared sense of relief and exhaustion. Darius leaned against the bulkhead, watching as Lindsay removed her outer cloak and inspected the faint scratches on her arms from the earlier skirmish. "You didn't have to jump in like that," he said softly, his voice tinged with admiration. Lindsay glanced at him, her glowing tattoos pulsing gently in the dim light. "And let you face them alone? I think not." He chuckled, shaking his head. "You're something else, Lindsay." Her expression softened, and she approached him slowly. "And you, Captain Kane, are unlike anyone I've ever known. Your courage, your kindness, they are rare." Her words carried a weight that Darius couldn't ignore. Their bond had deepened over the weeks they'd spent together. But tonight, something was different. The tension that had been building between them was now undeniable. Darius stood as Lindsay stopped just a breath away. Her luminous eyes searched his face, and her tattoos pulsed in a slow, rhythmic pattern that matched the beating of his heart. "Lindsay," he began, his voice low. Whatever this is between us. Are you sure?" She reached out, her fingers grazing his cheek with a tenderness that sent a shiver down his spine. "I have never been more certain of anything." Her words were a quiet confession, filled with a longing that matched his own. Slowly, tentatively, he leaned in, their lips meeting in a kiss that started soft and exploratory, but quickly deepened into something more passionate. Her arms wrapped around his neck, and he pulled her closer, his hands finding the small of her back. The faint glow of her tattoos warmed against his skin, their light shifting and pulsing in response to their growing connection. They moved to the small bed tucked into the corner of his quarters, their kisses growing more fervent. Darius paused briefly, his gaze locking onto hers. "If this is too much," he started, but she silenced him with a gentle press of her fingers to his lips. "I want this," she whispered. "I want you." Her honesty broke down the last of his reservations. They let go of the barriers that had kept them apart for so long, exploring each other with an intimacy that was both physical and emotional. Lindsay's glowing tattoos traced faint patterns across her skin, their light illuminating the room like starlight. Her touch was delicate yet purposeful, and every brush of her fingers against his skin felt like a promise. Darius responded in kind, his hands roaming her body with a reverence that made her breath hitch. They moved together with a rhythm that was unhurried yet intense, savoring each moment as if the rest of the galaxy had faded away. Afterward, they lay entwined in the dim glow of her tattoos, their breathing soft and synchronized. Darius brushed a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering on the edge of one of her glowing marks. "What do these mean now?" he asked quietly, tracing the pattern on her arm. She smiled, her eyes meeting his. "They tell the story of this moment, of us." He kissed her forehead, pulling her closer. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of peace, a feeling of belonging that had eluded him for so long. "You know," he said, his voice tinged with humor. "If anyone asked me a month ago if I'd be lying here with a glowing alien consort turned equal, I'd have called them crazy." Lindsay laughed softly, her voice like a melody. "And if anyone told me I'd find freedom and love with a human, I would have doubted their sanity as well." They lay together, their connection now unshakable, the stars outside the viewport a silent witness to the bond they had forged. What lies ahead of them is unknown, But all they know is regardless what happened, they will stand by each other. HFY Story